Another thing I was looking at was the long list of things that some of the mainstream media is claiming Donald Trump's supposed to be doing. I don't remember 72. There was a website that claims that he has 72 items to give us, 72 deliverables. That sounds a bit too much. But I do remember a few things, and one of them was term limits. I don't know how this is going to sync, how this will be taken and accepted by the Republican Party, because term limits is something that it kind of has been boiling for a while. I know that I hear it here and there, and some people say we should put term limits on it, and I think the Tea Party kind of brought it up a few times. But
getting them to vote that in, getting that to vote them in when that's their cash cow is going to be a trick.
Exactly. So it's like, okay, I'm going to vote for something that is going to kick me out next year. So is this another one of those Donald Trump political things that, well, I got to say all these things, or is this for reals? As young people will say, is this for reals?
Right. I think that's a very good question. I would like to think that at some point we come to that. I think we do need term limits. When you look at a lot of these people that have been in the Senate, especially, that are there for decades. They're out of touch with the American people. That they'd have no problem raising our taxes while voting themselves raises, and that's wrong. Getting
more than 130,000 a year.
I understand, they live in an expensive place and they are doing a public service, but it's just that it's a public service. Nobody asked you. You decided to go be our employee. It's no different than here at work, where I work. I don't go dictate the terms of my employment to my employer.
Right. There are expectations. And I think that they are hired, I guess, at will, but because of the mechanisms that they're always kind of getting money from lobbying companies or whoever, they're always
that's where the real wealth comes from. Well, that's what we really need to stop.
And that is another. I was going to say something about that. I think I found in one of my pages here. That's part of the government reform deal that he's working on, and the term limits is one. But he also talked about lobbying, a 5-year ban on White House and congressional officials becoming lobbyists. And this is part of that revolving door they talk about in Washington, where you go work for Washington, you become a congressman or whatever, and when you're done there, then you go work for the lobbying companies.
Yep.
And you have so many connections, then you can make money on both. I mean, it's just amazing. And it is, he said it, and other people have said it, it's a corrupt system.
That's the elite that's the elite, the so-called elite, rather, that everybody's worried about. These people are making ties for life, and then they're in positions of power for decades, and it's a hard system to break. And if he can break it, great. But I mean, I don't know how you do it.
And
I certainly don't know how you do it.
Yeah, and when he mentioned when he promised these things, I thought, okay, I'm going to wait for this because this is good. Not that I was supporting Donald Trump, because I'm not, but now that he's my president, because he's my president now, we must work together, everyone. And these are some of the things that I'm expecting now. I'm reading this, and it's truly amazing what he wants to do. Now, but you're right. Now the question is, am I going to shoot myself in the foot by saying I'm voting for something that's going to kick me out in 5 years? Under healthcare category, we all know Obamacare. He wants to either modify it or repeal it.
I think Ben Carson's a good man for that job. And that's who he's talking about putting in there, is Ben Carson.
Right. And I saw him this morning. He gave us a wonderful, not me, but he gave, I think he was on Fox, and he had a pretty good interview, and he was talking about it. And I'm not sure if he will repeal the whole thing, or just if it's easier to just scrap it and start from zero. I know that it's not working for me, and it's not working for a lot of middle-class people. The premiums go up, and then you don't know if, am I going to get this money back?
It was designed to fail. You do realize that, right?
I'm sorry?
Obamacare, the Affordable Health Care Act, it was designed to fail. And it's because they had another agenda, and they thought they were going to get it through because they thought Hillary was going to win. The liberal left, they all want single payer. You know, they want, which, you know, is great on the surface. You know, a lot of these programs sound like miraculous, you know, the greatest thing ever. And they would be if they work. But there's only so much money, and that money's got to come from somewhere.
Right. Exactly. A few studies show that it wasn't going to work, and they kept using other studies. And then we have that wonderful time when the economist who helped draft this package was talking badly about this healthcare system. And then he had to apologize in Congress. An economist from MIT. I forgot his name. We can probably bring it up next time. So under the healthcare, he does want to do away with that. And he wants to reform the VA. Now, the VA, I feel really so bad about the veterans of America. And this is because, I'm sorry to say this, but they've been neglected by both parties for many years.
It's been that way for almost since the beginning of this country. You know, you look back clear to World War I, and there was almost riots over how we treated our vets.
You know, I wouldn't mind if they raised my taxes just a little bit to say this is to take care of all the veterans. I wouldn't mind that at all.
Well, be careful. Be careful what door you open.
What you wish for, huh? But you know, I would care for other things. But really, I mean, these are the guys who keep you safe, and these are the guys. Right. These are the guys who allow you and me to have conversations like this in a peaceful world.
Quit sending them to end the war. That'd go a long way toward helping our veterans.
Yes,
and our soldiers in general.
Now, what about his number that he said? We're not going to spend money on wars anymore. Now, that's a game changer for a lot of people, right. Especially the young people who say we're tired of all these wars. We're spending trillions of dollars around the world in battles and wars. Why do we have to fight them? Now,
money is not the biggest issue when it comes to war. You know, money is so secondary when it comes to war. What you need to worry about when you're sending our boys and girls overseas to fight people is not money. It's blood and it's sweat.
It's the lives, right?
Yeah.
And that's exactly. That's first and most important. And we can build so many things here in this country with all that money.
Absolutely, we could.
I sometimes share. Buildings and gardens and bridges that are built in Dubai, built in China, and I share them, one, because they're pretty, but the other reason why I share them is because I want to tell everyone, look, guys, we could be doing the same thing. No, I mean, probably even better. I don't see why trains that go really fast, things are getting built around the world for the first time in other countries, not in this country anymore. And that cannot happen because we have the resources.
Well, and that's part of what's killed the American middle class is we've got away from manufacturing and we've shipped it to other places to be done cheap. So now we have no skilled labor to do that. And we build restaurants all the time, but we build right. nothing to support those restaurants. You know, I mean,
we got a lot of we got a lot of fast food places and no factories. I wonder where people are getting the money to buy food now.
Well, I guess they're basically walking from being a server or whatever at one restaurant, and you know they're sick of that food, so they go somewhere else.
One thing he could never sell to. I'm sorry. What were you going to say?
Oh no, go ahead.
One thing he could never sell to me, and one thing that I'm not convinced, the jury's still out as far as I'm concerned, is the NAFTA deal. And I had a NAFTA job when I was younger, right back there in South Texas. And NAFTA is one of those convoluted things that it's very, very difficult to understand. Very difficult to understand. Even if I give my fellow Americans out there, if I give you the volume of data on NAFTA, it is just too much to comprehend. As far as, okay, how many jobs did it create? How are jobs created in NAFTA? What about the trade deficit? Is it helping us?
Just not here.
Huh?
NAFTA did create a lot of jobs, just not here.
Yeah. And, you know, like indirectly, what did it do? And to me, it's one of those difficult things to analyze, to understand it, to make a decision. I know how NAFTA works. I mean, I was shipping stuff to Mexico when I was working for a warehouse in South Texas, and I understand a little bit of the trade and how it happens, and the tariff, how it gets paid, and all those things, and
Right.
how Mexico sends us stuff. We send stuff over there, Canada, all these things, and I wouldn't be able to tell you. Tonight, I wouldn't be able to tell you if it is a good or a bad deal, or how bad it is, or even, is it any good? I have no idea. To me, it seems like a very, very difficult decision to make, very difficult to determine whether NAFTA has been grossly bad for us or not.
Well, I'd say you ask most, middle class American workers, and they're going to tell you it's not been good. There's been a lot of factories shut down. Carrier air conditioners is an example I like to use. They they had a plant, I believe it was Indianapolis, and they had it for years. Carrier, of course, invented the air conditioner.
Yep.
And now, that they're being shut down, and those jobs are being shipped down to Mexico. And then that product is being brought back up here and sold to Americans. I get what you're saying, and you're right. It's
very
that's
difficult.
A deep topic.
It is very difficult because I've looked at the data. I look at volumes of data, economic data, and there are so many moving parts. You bring up a good example, but then there are other examples where, like, okay, well, it opened a bunch of warehouses in Brownsville, Texas, and in Harlingen and McAllen, and it opened transportation opportunities in San Antonio, and you're like, well, okay, well, and we're
That's
selling
not manufacturing, though.
and
That's
and we're selling things to Mexico that they're buying from us, like these things that we send over, maybe cable and maybe phone units, and it's like, okay, well, all right, it's a lot. I wouldn't be. There was a time when I was looking into it, and I thought, well, that it's going to take. It's a lifetime. So on this one, I wouldn't be able to tell whether he's right or wrong. I can't tell. Now on the trade with China, though, on that one,
slave labor, China.
On
We're talking
China,
about
yeah. On China, what I can tell you is that we do have an amazing trade deficit with them. And one of the reasons is because China manipulates the currency.
Their own and ours by their. They mess around with ours, which messes with ours.
Oh yeah,
they overvalue it and undervalue it. It depends on what side of the deal they're on.
And what happens is that it's not an even trade. It's not a fair game because our currency is free flowing. It's based on the market. Their currency,
part of the reason.
Yeah, their currency.
I don't mean to cut you off, but this is part of the deal with, like Ron Paul said. We need a gold standard. We need a standard.
Yep.
Paper money is too easy to be like, okay, it's worth this or this or this, but with gold, you have a pretty well set amount that it's going to be. There's a market value for it.
Right, and it has its own absolute value. And that's it. An ounce of gold is an ounce of gold, and you can buy this much with an ounce of gold. And it used to be like that. It used to be pegged to the gold, and they did away with that. And I think you're right. It was a mistake.
It was a huge mistake. Kennedy knew it was a mistake. John F. Kennedy himself.
In fact, some people claim this is why he's no longer he's not alive in the 60s.
I won't go so far as to say that.
That is another.
But he knew about it.
That's another hour of conversation.
I try and stay out of the conspiracy theory too much.
Yeah,